Doesn't, oh, good, it worked. Okay. Okay, so we've got about 5 people here so far. So now's a really good time to start asking questions because I should be able to answer them because there's only a few people here. Anyway, my name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. If you go on the link above, you can get my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, or you can hire me for coaching. Coaching is done a little bit different these days in that you have to email me. You can't just sign up automatically, just availability with me. And I want to make sure it's a good match because a lot of people maybe don't need coaching. They might just need the boot camp course or something else. So anyway, so go ahead with your parenting questions if you're ready. Whew. Okay. Oops. Okay. I'm just waiting for your questions. I'm not chasing questions anymore because I'm just kind of enjoying the break right now. I got a whole bunch of questions over here that I could answer. Hi, Texas. I got to get down there one day. I want to see Austin, Dallas, and I want to go to Fort Worth. I don't know much about it. Houston. I don't know how. It's a very big state, so I don't know how I get around all those places, but I'd love to visit Texas one day. Anyway, your parenting questions, please. Yeah, I would love to. Definitely, I want to get down there one day. I haven't been traveling a lot. I'm really busy with work right now, but one day I'll get down there one day. Okay, San Antonio. Oh, there's so many big cities in Texas, aren't there? Fort Worth, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, Austin. That's a lot. Like in British Columbia, where I'm from, there's Vancouver. That's pretty much the only big city. I mean, there's other cities, but there's a lot smaller. And it's a huge province. Okay, so I'm just waiting for your parenting questions. Facebook is my slowest live, so it means I usually can get to most of the questions. It usually picks up after a while, so. Okay, England, any tips for a fussy 18-month-old? Yeah, they're just going to go through stage after stage after stage. My suggestion or recommendation to you is don't try and figure them out. Just go with it. Just when you think you've got them figured out when they're toddlers, they're going to change. They're not consistent. They're forming. They're brand new, fresh human beings. So yeah, they're not figure-outable. Nebraska. Hello, Nebraska. Nebraska. Don't quite know where that is. I think I know where that is. I know a lot of states now because on TikTok, I started doing lives on TikTok, and it's really busy over there, and I get a lot of states on TikTok. And I was for ages there. I was looking them all up. I'd write them all the states that I didn't know. I'd write them all down and look at them later. Any tips for introducing new baby into toddler's life? Absolutely none. How can you possibly prepare a toddler for what's going to happen? It's impossible. You can barely prepare for it. How prepared were you for the first baby? Imagine having your first sibling and you're a toddler. Yeah, there's no preparing for it. So if I had any advice, I'd give it to you, but I don't have any. What are good consequences for 9-year-old and 3-year-old? Check out the behavior board. It'll explain how you do that, and it depends on your home. It's usually a good deed. Like the consequence, if they do something bad, they have to replace it with doing something good. It's usually like a chore. Boy, I get a lot of flack for this. We don't want to make chores negative. Chores, it's like you want to make chores fun. How much fun do you really think a teenager, like if you teach them that cleaning the toilet is fun, as a teenager, they're going to go, yippee, I get to clean the toilet. Most people never like chores. That's okay. You want to teach children that you're not going to like everything in life. You don't try and make everything fun. That's the pleaser parent style. You know, I hate that. So don't try and make everything fun and easy for your kids. That's ridiculous. Life isn't always fun and easy. So yeah, anyway, consequences are usually a chore. But check out the behavior board. There's some exceptions in there. It's completely free. And if you want more, that's the boot camp course. That's the behavior board on steroids. Actually, the behavior board, we do that in the boot camp course. It's 5 weeks long. The first 3 weeks are behavior boards, and then we go off the behavior board and go rogue, really. I never used a behavior board. It's just a teaching tool, teaching you how to get respect. Because you're on there too. So you've got to give respect to get it. That's what a leader does. A leader isn't a dictator or an authority style. You are a leader. You give respect to get it. You set an example. You're accountable too. Because kids aren't listening to you. They're watching you. Like no matter what you say to them, if you're not accountable, they're not going to be, because they're watching you. Or they might be. They might do what you say if you're the old-fashioned authority style. They might do what you say, but it builds resentment, and that's why the poop hits the fan in the teen years with the authority style, because they've been resenting the fact that you're not accountable for anything, but they are. So that's why resentment builds. I got into Instagram. I don't have a lot of time to answer comments in that, but I'm going to try and get to more of them. And I went through and I answered. I thought, well, I'll just spend an hour answering comments today. I went on Instagram and started answering some of the comments. I think I spent 3 hours and I didn't get through half of them. So I think if I did them every day, it'd be a lot easier, and I wouldn't get to all of them. But and I thought, well, I'll just spend an hour and I'll do all the comments on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If I'm not answering your messages and comments, it's not because I'm ignoring you. I just have to sleep. It's just, I'm going to figure out a system whereby I'm going to try and do a little bit every day, and hopefully it'll get easier. But yeah, I'm doing my best here. Okay, I'm just waiting for your questions. Okay. Emily Simons, my 6-year-old will jump and bang in his room when he doesn't get his way. I ignore this. Should I continue to ignore it? I look at it as a tantrum, so that's why I've been ignoring it. Okay, you know what? I would check out the boot camp course. That's sort of next level. At 6 years old, they should be outgrowing that stuff. Check out the boot camp course, because when you're a leader, that just doesn't happen. Like, you're asking me, how do I deal with that one specific thing? But if you're not a leader, it's not going to work anyway. So check out the boot camp course, or at the least, check out the behavior board. That's completely free. And the boot camp course has a lot more in it, obviously, but it starts with the behavior boards. But yeah, it just says to me that I can tell you what I do, but I'm a leader, and it would work. But if you're not a leader, and at 6 years old, if they're still acting like that, you want to work on your leadership. Remember, we're never fixing kids. We're teaching parents here. So happy I finally made one of your lives. I'm from Sylvia. I'm Sylvia. Oh, I'm Sylvia. I'm thinking, where's Sylvia? I'm Sylvia from Australia. Hi, Australia. I got a lot of Australians watching. I'm from Australia. I'm from Canada. Then I was in Australia for 20 years. My kids were born and raised there. I arrived in Australia. I married an Australian, and 9 months to the day after I arrived, I had my son, my first child, in Sydney. And then we went to Brisbane. My second child was born in Brisbane. And yeah, I love Australia. I was there for 20 years, and I didn't have one North American friend there in 20 years. Isn't that bizarre? You'd think I would have met some American or Canadian. No. I met the odd one, but all my friends, I didn't become friends with them. Isn't that weird? You'd think I would have, wouldn't you? Anyway. Okay. I have a 3-month-old and a 22-month-old. I know what you're going to say. Occasionally, my toddler will try and bite myself and his baby brother. Yeah, you're between a rock and a hard place. And that is my most frustrating client when I'm hired for coaching. It's when someone is breastfeeding, has a baby, and a toddler who's acting out. What can you do? You got a baby hanging off your boob, and then you got a toddler going crazy. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Check out my course. Wait a minute, which course would be good for you? Yeah, okay. I have a course called Toddlers Who Hit, Bite, Etc. You might want to check that out. That's my last course that doesn't have videos on it. I'm almost finished with those videos. They'll be up there soon. If you've purchased a course previously, they all have videos now. Oh, no, wait a minute. My bedtime one? No, just the one. Hitting the Toddlers Who Hit is the only course without the videos. All the rest of them, I finished all the videos. So, but they'll be up soon, and you can look at them anytime. But anyway, check out that course. That sort of teaches you how to deal with it when they hit, bite, etc. It's about consistent corrective actions. Toddlers are not about words. They're about actions. That is their world. That is their language. Their language is not many therapy sessions discussing things. You just got to supervise that baby 24/7. I'm sorry about that, but there's just not much you can do. You're between a rock and a hard place. You're breastfeeding, you got a toddler. Yeah, it's physically difficult. What do you do when you try to discipline, implement a consequence, and kids get silly? Anger seems easy to deal with, but the goofiness, I don't know how, 4 years old. Okay, they usually do that as a way to manipulate you, to pull you into their silly world. Hey, this isn't so serious. Look at me. Ha, I'm laughing at you and all that stuff like that. Just check out the behavior board and just follow through with that. And don't worry about their attitude. Attitude, once you become a leader, their attitude organically changes. So they reflect your leadership. Check out the boot camp course too. That's from the age of 3 to 12 years old. At that age, that's when you're at the height of your leadership skills. They will want to please you. When you're a good leader, they want to please you. Their behavior between the ages of 3 and 12 is 100% a direct result of your parenting. So isn't that good news? It means you can actually control it. You don't want to control their personality or their basic nature. That's different. You wouldn't want to squash that. But how they treat people, and if they respect people, that you can control. Okay, so check out the boot camp course. It's all in the link above. When my 3-year-old has a tantrum and I pick him up to remove him a situation he kicks, how do I respond? Okay, pick him up to remove him a situation. Why are you picking him up to remove him? I let them have a fit where they are. If you do have to move them and they kick, I would turn them around so that they're not facing you when you do have to carry them somewhere. So just kind of carry them like this or whatever. Don't pick them up like this so they can kick easier. But yeah, it's just something you're going to have to go through. If you absolutely have to remove them from a situation, do so, but then plunk them down nearby and then ignore them. You might have to physically restrain them if they try and run back to wherever you want them to not be. But yeah, I have a whole course on toddler tantrums if you're interested, but that's a 3-year-old. It's the same thing with tantrums, though. You still ignore tantrums. They don't go on the behavior board. You never discipline a tantrum. A tantrum is a loss of emotional control at not getting what they want, when they want, and how they want it. You don't discipline that. It's a loss of emotional control. You are minimizing the duration, intensity, and frequency by ignoring the tantrum. You ignore the crazy, and then you reward the calm. Like with my son, he had tantrums. My daughter didn't. They're born to have them, or they are. Can't stand it when people go on the comments and they say, oh, well, I have 4 kids and they've never had a tantrum, as if it's the mom. They're born to do it. It's nothing you did or didn't do. Okay, they either are going to have tantrums or they're never going to have one. I never had one. My daughter never had one. My son was very good at them. They're either going to have them or they're not. It's nothing you did, but you can minimize them in duration, frequency, and intensity by ignoring them. So with my son, I ignore the crazy, which is the tantrum. I'm filing my nails, waiting, and right there, just waiting. Look like you're waiting for a bus. It's important that they know you're standing there waiting for that tantrum to stop. Don't look at them. Don't talk to them. As soon as they're done, you say, oh, y'all done? Okay, let's go read a book, or let's go to the park, or let's go. So it's like it never happened, like it has no effect on you whatsoever, because they're only doing it to affect you. If it doesn't affect you, they're going to stop doing it. Does that make sense? I'm going to write that down. Might be a better way of explaining. I always think I'm explaining it. Oh, that's how I explain it. And then I think of a better way. Tantrums are only, just let me write that down, sorry. They, oh, sugar, only have tantrums to affect you. So if they don't affect you, they'll stop having them. I'll reword that differently. My neighbor's dog, just a sec. Every so often they smell another dog in the hallway and they go nuts. Okay. My 3-year-old gets so angry and yells. I don't know how to handle it. Well, that's in the attitude department. You really don't do much about that. You set yourself up as a leader, and their attitude will change organically in a reaction to your leadership. So that's what leadership's all about. You lead, they will follow. Children instinctively need a leader. They need, crave, and want a leader. They don't know how to ask for it. But if you're not a leader for your children, you're going to send them out there in the world. They're going to be very vulnerable. They're going to be very vulnerable to peer pressure, bullying, the drug dealer on the corner, the internet, the Kardashians. They're going to go searching for a leader elsewhere because they instinctively need, crave, and want one. That's why you want to be their leader. And they're going to take that leadership umbrella everywhere they go. So once you've got your leadership cemented, by the age of about 3.5 to 4, they're going to be formed under your leadership umbrella. So wherever they go, they're going to be respectful and polite, no matter where they go. It's just the way it is. Maybe you missed my question. I'm wondering how you would manage an 8-year-old who has big emotions and swears when things don't go his way. Okay, when you're a leader, it calms them down, and that would not happen. Work on your leadership. Their behavior is 100% a direct result of your parenting. Everyone wants to fix kids. We don't do that. We fix and teach parents because they are reacting to you. That is what that is. They are reacting to you. I've worked with hundreds of kids, violent teenagers, delinquent teenagers, kids. Every kid I worked with was difficult. No one ever said, here's an easy one, Lisa. They all said, good luck with this one. So of all ages, toddlers right up to teenagers. And I managed to get respect with all of them. Was it them or was it me? Did I just catch all those hundreds of kids on a good day, or was it my leadership? Work on your leadership and you will get great results with kids. It's just the way it is. I don't teach kidding. I don't teach teenagering. I don't teach toddlering. I teach parenting. That's what I call leadership. And by the way, when I'm talking about young children, it's completely different with teenagers. Teenagers are a whole other can of worms. They're my favorite age, actually. But yeah, it's different. How to motivate a teen who is struggling in school and life in general. Just came back to live with me after trying a couple years with dad as primary parent. Didn't want to be with me because of rules at home. He had free range at his dad's, unfortunately. So now he's back with you. I'm wondering why he's back with you after being free range at dad's. Anyway, I would need to know that. Like what happened over there. Anyway, teen struggling in school and life in general. You'd have to hire me. Because that's a lot. He's struggling in school and life in general. How can I answer that? I don't know what he's struggling with. So that would be coaching. If you want my help, check out the link above. You can email me. And I don't have an automatic sign up for coaching anymore, just due to my availability mostly. So you'd have to send me an email and we'll discuss it and see if it would be right for you if you want to work with me. But yeah, I don't have any courses on teenagers and for parents of teenagers. So yeah, I don't know. But a lot of parents of teenagers can't stand me in the first session because they all want to correct the teenager's behavior. And I say, no, we're going to fix you. We're going to teach you how to talk to teenagers. We're going to teach you how to connect with your teenager. You got to connect with them. You got to bond with them first. You got to get their respect before you can manage anything else. So, but everyone wants, come on, what's the quick fix? There is no quick fix with teenagers. It's an investment in tomorrow. So yeah, you got to work on yourself and how you actually communicate and bond and connect with your teenager. So yeah, it's a slow burn process, but it's worth it. They're my favorite age. I love teenagers. Just turned 17. Yeah. It's a tough age. It's even more important to not try and discipline right now. Don't tell them what to do. I'm going to read out my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. Like if you don't want to hire me, this might give you some ideas. Okay. Number 1 is you listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with. They will shut you out. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. They already know it anyway. Number 2 is you negotiate pretty much everything with the teenager. It goes something like this. Hey, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper from now on. What do you want from me? It's not a blanket statement, but you kind of get the idea there. You want to show respect by giving them more control and showing them that you're accountable too. Number 3 is don't sweat the small stuff with teenagers. Save your energy for the big stuff if you even need it. Okay, if you're going to micromanage a teenager, good luck with that. It's not going to happen. So yeah, they're allowed to make mistakes, just like you did. If they do something stupid and it's not a big deal, I would have said, hey, that was stupid. Do you want to hear what I did at your age? And laugh it off. Like everyone makes mistakes. They're allowed to. Give them a pass. So it's all about respect. And once you get this figured out, they'll tell you everything. And then they'll start to respect you. It just changes everything. Is it normal for a preteen to show aggression through physical violence, for example, kicking walls or headbutting walls? Or is it likely they have seen it in the parent and copying that? No, it's not. It's very, very common, especially boys. They tend to not talk as much when they get upset. Girls are more likely to spew out nasty stuff. Boys will do a little bit of that too, but they're more likely to spew it out through physical violence. They might punch a hole in the wall. It's extremely common. Does not mean they've seen it before. Just means it's just their bodies. They got like all sorts of testosterone. And I don't understand testosterone. I'm assuming I don't have a lot of it. So I don't understand physical violence. Like my go-to is crying. If I'm upset, I'll probably cry. Like the last thing I would do would be physical. But young boys are different. They just are. They just have this physical presence about them and they do tend to. So yeah, don't worry about it. It's not that they're copying behavior. Are you worried that they've seen it somewhere? They could have, but that's mostly, I would say it's not the case. Most parents who hire me who have teenagers who are doing that or preteens who are doing that, they're very passive, highly educated, successful people, can't figure out where this violence came from. But yeah, it's just their way of dealing with frustration. Thank you for devoting your time for us and all your questions. I love what I do, and you should see the emails I get. That's what keeps me going. It's just some amazing, amazing stories about how I've helped people. So keeps you going. Thank you. I've tried to access the behavior board, but it isn't being sent to my email. Oh, it will be. It takes a few minutes. I get a lot of messages about that. I signed up for the behavior board and I didn't get it. I always ignore them because it takes maybe 10 to 20 minutes. It's like a third-party delivery system, the way I've got it set up. So, and I do that too. If I sign up for something, I didn't get it, and I'll send the thing and it'll turn up in my email. Oops, never mind. So yeah, it should come in. If it doesn't, let me know. What I very rarely, maybe once a month, people will say, I've signed up many times and it hasn't worked. They've actually typed in the wrong email address. They'll tell me what their email address is and I'll go in and they've typed in the wrong one. So just double check that you've used the right email. And it should take, within a half hour, you should get it. I've gone through the toddler boot camp. Well, I don't have a toddler boot camp. Okay, you mean the boot camp course, 3 to 12 years old? A toddler is under 3. So I don't know what you, just let me hit the show. Okay, I'm assuming, I don't know how old they are though. Okay, let's say you bought the boot camp course and let's say they're 4, okay, because you haven't put an age or anything. Gone through the toddler boot camp. We've been trying to stop the constant whining and it's not going away even a little. What do you think about having a consequence for whining? I don't know the age. I don't know where you are in the boot camp. That goes away eventually, but it doesn't go away right away. So it might take 5 or 6. If they've been whining for the last 4 years, it might take a couple of months before it goes away. So it will eventually go away. You ignore whining. If they're old enough to understand, like I don't know the age, it's kind of awkward here. But let's say they're 4 and they're still whining. I would say, look, when you talk like this, I want that. I'm not going to answer you anymore. But if you talk nicely, like may I please have, I'll answer, but the answer may still be no. Okay, do you understand? You have to say that a few times. I don't feel like I've given you a good answer because I don't know the age. And I don't know if you've gone through the boot camp and where you are. Are you in week 1, week 5? I don't know. So yeah. But I tried to answer a little bit anyway. Okay, my 3-year-old has figured out how to argue. When I tell him no, he says, but I want to. Do I ignore it? When I tell him no, he says, but I want to. Oh, why would you answer that? Yeah, my kids never learned how to argue because I don't argue. Like I just don't. If I'd said no, we're not going to watch TV right now, and they'd say, but I want to, I would just probably look like this and then walk away. Like I don't argue with kids. I said, no, it's not going on. Well, my mother would have been the same. If she'd said no to something and I would have argued it, she would have looked at me like this and then just wandered off. I would have been embarrassed. So yeah, they can only argue if you're arguing back. So they just don't like that you said no. That's on them. That's their responsibility to figure that out. They have to process the no. It's not your job. It's not your job to self-regulate children. That's so popular right now. Help them self-regulate. That self-regulating is self. They have to learn how to do that themselves. If you're interrupting that process, you're messing it up. Oh, God, am I going to make it through this live? I've got another hour to go. Just my voice. I don't know why it's giving out today. Shoot. Oh, I have to go ahead because I might... people come and go, so I've flipped ahead to get the most recent question. I've applied for the behavior board about 4 weeks ago, and then again, it's over the last few weeks, and nothing is coming. Well, send me an email. Let me know your email address. The only people that they really have not got the behavior board are the ones who didn't put in the correct email address. Every single time that someone hasn't got it over a period of time, like it usually takes about a half hour to arrive. Within a half hour, it should arrive. And look in your spam. It might have turned up there. I've got everything set up so it shouldn't arrive in spam, but it might. I don't discuss grandchildren. The reason is I never tell other people how to manage other people's kids because what if the parents don't like it? So I never do. Like I've got a grandchild now. I'll never tell my kids how to parent. It's none of my business. So yeah, I just don't. Um, How can I get my 3-year-old to stop throwing the middle finger when upset? Okay, that's, I've never done that my whole life. Someone asked me that the other day, or no, it came up somewhere. And they said, "Oh, how often have you given the middle finger?" In my whole life, I've never done it. I, like I wouldn't even know how to do it. It was funny because my mom and I had that conversation with them. Neither of us had ever given, and I know my daughter never has either. So it must be genetic. Anyway, okay, so what I would do is that's such a rude gesture. I ignore attitude, but that's a rude gesture. So I would put that on the behavior board. I would say no showing your middle finger. Put that on the behavior board. It starts at the age of 3. Okay, put that on the behavior board. And then there's a consequence if they do. The kids also have a nanny. Oh, I see. My fiance has a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old daughter. We live 2 hours apart, so I mainly see them on the weekends. Is our situation good for coaching? The kids also have a nanny and grandparents who help take care of their kids. Would they be involved in the coaching too? Depends on how much they have them. And geez, I don't know. Send me an email and give me a little bit more information. Send me an email because I don't know. I don't know if I could help you because there's a lot going on there. I don't like to have anyone else in on coaching. I know sometimes I get hired by very wealthy people or celebrities, and they have. Do you know what they people who in that when they have a lot of money, they often have 3 nannies per child because nannies work in 8-hour shifts. I didn't know this, and I can't go into detail about it, but just that I once people turned up with like 9 nannies there. 9 nannies. I said they all have to leave, or I'm going to have to give you a refund. I wouldn't talk with a nanny there because it's parenting. I want them to teach the nannies what to do. But yeah, I've never. I remember the first time I saw that. What? What? And then they tell their friends who also have a lot of nannies, and then they try and turn up with the nannies too. But yeah, I really don't like to welcome other people into coaching. Because I'm teaching parenting here, very specifically, I'm teaching parenting. And then I would like the parents to pass on the information they would like to pass on. Do you know what I wouldn't like about having all those live-in nannies is I wouldn't understand privacy. Like, how do you have privacy? I just don't understand that. Like, how could I understand that kind of lifestyle? I don't know how you have any privacy. Yeah. I mean, you'd be sitting there having a cup of tea in the morning and 9 nannies walk in for a cup of tea. I mean, how do you manage? I guess they have their own quarters, their own kitchen. Never mind. I'm just going off. Okay. And I don't waste any time asking that stuff because they're the coach, right? Oops. I'm going to have to move over to Instagram now because I bounce from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok, 30 minutes on each one. And I'm on YouTube the whole 90 minutes. And that's where all of these lives are saved. This Facebook live is saved for 30 days, but TikTok and Instagram are not. They get deleted right away. Anyway, don't ask me why. It's what I've been told to do. Anyway, so I'm going to get going now. I'm just going to say that if you want to move over to Instagram, it's Bratbusters Parenting. And TikTok is also Bratbusters Parenting. Or you can just go on YouTube and sit through the whole thing. Sorry, I should be answering my YouTube also. I'll do that soon. Anyway, so I'm moving over to Instagram, but if you check out the link above, you can get my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, so you can hire me for coaching. Coaching's done differently now due to my availability becoming more scrunched. And so you have to send me an email first. You can't sign up automatically anymore. And I'll make sure it's a good fit because you might need something else. I just want to make sure that it's a good fit. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me, and I'll be back again Thursday for sure, but I'll be back again tomorrow sometime. I'm just not sure when. I'm going to start doing daily lives again. I sometimes don't always do every day, but I've missed it, so I'm going to start doing daily lives again. I just don't know the time every day. I've only got 2 regularly scheduled ones. It's up in the link. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. Happy parenting. Sorry, YouTube, I'm just moving over, making sure I'm on the right channel. And come on, go. Okay, so I'm just looking at YouTube here. What happens, this is from Gemma Grant, what happens if the tantrum happens at bedtime when their younger sibling is asleep, 3-year-old? I can't help you with that. Like, what I mean is, I can't help you with keeping a child quiet at bedtime if they're going to have a tantrum. The way that I deal with tantrums is I let it fly. I also can't help parents who live in a tiny apartment that isn't very well soundproofed and their child cannot make any noise. My hands are tied because the way that I deal with a tantrum is I let it fly and I just ignore it. So the only way to avoid them waking up the younger sibling is to interrupt and give them what they want. And I don't teach that. So it's just awkward. If you could bring them over to the farthest side of the home, wherever that is, and let them scream it out there, awake, and then have a sound machine where the baby is, the younger one is, so that they would drown out the sound. That's about all I can tell you. I'm not going to change my methods because I can't. You see what I mean? Yeah, it's kind of awkward. Anyway, that's on YouTube. Yeah, it's tough. Okay, so I'm looking on my YouTube here. What are some things that shouldn't be put on the behavior chart? Anything that is attitude-based or anything that's personality-based. You know, like sometimes, I can't tell you the word because it's so rude, but I've had parents who put down stop being A, B-I-T, like to teenage daughters. I said, no, you don't put stuff like that on there. So I say they're allowed to put down stop being a, something back to you then. But yeah, nothing attitude or personality-based, just actions. Sorry, I'm trying to get my wheels sorted out here. So yeah, nothing personality based. And if you're doing this on your own in coaching, we go in a little bit tougher because I know how to help you through it. But if you're doing it on your own without me, make it something easy, something you can handle. Don't start with the big stuff. Start with the small stuff because you're learning how to do this. It's all about you. It's not about the kids. They're usually going to get worse before they get better because they're going to fight back to get the leadership back for themselves. If you haven't been the leader in the past and they've been in charge, they're going to fight you tooth and nail. They usually do. But here's your trajectory. You're going like this, especially look at the boot camp course. It goes for 5 weeks, how to be a leader in 5 weeks. This is your trajectory. Here's the kids, the good, the bad, good, bad, good, bad, good, bad. By about the 3rd week, you'll see them start to get on board with what's going on. That's the idea behind it. Depends on how difficult things were to start with. But they're going to go up and down, up and down. Don't worry about that. You just keep on that trajectory. Just keep calm and keep moving forward. And it'll eventually work. They'll eventually settle down. But yeah, they're going to kick up a storm. Usually gets worse before it gets better. Parents always want the rainbow. And I always say, are you ready for the storm? Because you got to go through a storm to get to that rainbow. It's worth it though. I say this all the time, but I love this story. It's a short one. I was asked to work with this 8-year-old little boy and he was a handful and he didn't know me. And I first sat down with him and he asked for something, which was ridiculous. And I said, no, you can't have that. We're working on this right now. And he said to me in this filthiest tone of voice, and he was threatening me. And he says, if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to have a fit. And I said, bring it on. And he went like that and he never did. So I have no fear of a fit, scene, or a tantrum. That's my opportunity to exercise my leadership. I was actually kind of disappointed he didn't have a fit because I thought that's where I shine. I know how to deal with it. And that's where I get respect. So it's the storms, it's the fits, the scenes, the tantrums. Those are the lessons. If you deal with it correctly, those are the big lessons. That kid didn't need the lesson. He picked up on my energy right away. He thought there's no point trying to fight with this one because he knew. I guess the look on my face was like, bring it on. Not only did I say, go ahead, it was like, come on, challenging him. Go for it. I'm right here. So yeah, he never did. It takes time to get that level of that body language, that confidence. You'll get there. What are your thoughts about Montessori for a 2 or 3-year-old? I don't have an opinion on Montessori, Steiner, homeschooling. It's a personal choice, whether you're Jewish or Catholic or religions. It's a personal choice. There are certain things that I don't literally have no opinion on. And that's like Montessori. I don't have an opinion on it. I have my own personal views on what I like, but it has nothing to do with what I teach. So yeah, it's just I don't share my personal views because that's just would be kind of arrogant, right? I just share what I think could help everybody or most people. But yeah, I don't have an opinion on it. The only thing I've seen that can be negative with Montessori or homeschooling or anything alternative is when they hit high school, they're usually mainstreamed. So they go into a public high school or a private high school even. So they're out with other kids who were not in Montessori, who were not homeschooled, they can often struggle socially. That's the only thing I've seen. So make sure that you socialize your children with other kids who are not homeschooled, who are not in Montessori, so that they learn how to socialize with other kids. Like, that's the only thing I've seen, because those, especially homeschooling, they've got a really tight-knit community, and those kids often just flounder out in the real world afterwards, right? Because they haven't had any exposure to it. Okay, I'm a principal, and I would think your training would help my teachers be leaders of their classroom. I want to make this really clear. I know nothing about teaching or principling or child psychology, but a lot of my clients are just those things. You can, but I teach home-based, personal connecting with parent-child relationships. All those kids I worked with for, hundreds of them over the years, I was mothering them, very much so. They were all troubled kids. Not every single one of them, but they all had challenges, and I was mothering them. So yeah, if I had to get up and teach a class, I think I'd wet myself. So I just want to make it really clear. I have no, I am often hired to help out with that, but it's not my specialty. I just want to make that really clear. A lot of stuff can cross over. That's why, imagine how embarrassing it is for a child psychologist to hire me. A lot of them do. And they say, but they're very, in touch with everything, obviously. And they say, yeah, it's different from everything else. Like, I couldn't do what they do. But also, it's not that those people are struggling more. They have these child development degrees. They know tons about kids. It's just that they identify that parenting is different. It's a different, not everything crosses over. Some stuff is the same, yes, but some isn't. Like, one of the things that works really well in classrooms that I would never do at home is a reward chart. I hate them. I would never have a reward chart in my home. A reward chart says to a child at home, home-based, it says to a child, you're normally rotten, but if you should happen to be good, you'll get a gold star. That's the message you're sending. But they work in classrooms. It's an institution. It's different. It's business. It's just different. So that's one, it's a really good example of what works at school. It doesn't work at home. And plus, I use a lot of touch with kids. Like, I'm very demonstrative with children. I'm kind of all over my kids. Even now they're adults, but I'm just very much that way. And you can't do that when you're a teacher. That's a lot of what I did especially when I was working with troubled teens. Touch calmed them down. Just a hand on an arm was enough to calm them down. Just touch, but you can't touch kids when you're a teacher. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's awkward. So yeah. Isn't that sad that you can't even give a kid a hug anymore? Yeah. I understand it. I get it. Okay, keeping toddler in bed for bedtime without laying in bed with them. I have a whole bedtime battles course. It's now got videos on it. I just put those up yesterday, I think. Anyway, bedtime battles. Did I? Yeah, anyway. Bedtime battles. It's in 2-part. How to get them in bed, then how to keep them there. If you want to lay with your kid in bed for an hour or two, that's fine. Some parents want to do that, so don't get my course. But if you don't want to do it, you might want to check out the course. It just goes into detail about how you manage that. It's going to be difficult. I'm just telling you now. But it's usually just one night of hell, and then usually gets better. Depends on how well you do it. Are things done differently with twins? No. I've worked with triplets and twins, and no. You can have twins. You know why twins often develop very different personalities? They're such different people. Do you know why? They got to pick a lane. Wait a minute, you're really good at that. I want my own identity. I'm going to pick that. That's why twins are often really different personalities, because one twin's already cornered something, so they think, well, I want to have my own stuff. Doesn't always work out, but yeah, a lot of the time they say, how come twins are so completely different? That's why. By the way, that's my own personal view of it. I could be wrong. I don't think so, though. How to handle an almost 3-year-old flailing tantrum. You completely ignore them while they're having a tantrum. Should I tell the swing story? It's such a, God, I tell it all the time. Anyway, you completely ignore, unless they're getting physically violent and they're hurting themselves, hurting someone else, or damaging property. Then you intervene with just restraining them. Still don't look at them or talk to them, though. It's very important. You ignore the crazy and reward the calm. As soon as the tantrum's over, oh, you all done? Okay, let's go read a book or whatever. So any attention is tantrum food. If you're talking or looking at a kid while they're having a tantrum, you're fertilizing it. It's just going to keep growing and growing. When you learn how to ignore it, their brain learns how to process. They go into a tantrum, how to maintain it, how to get out of it, when to do it. They'll eventually learn this ain't working with you, so they're just going to stop doing it. Eventually, children learn to only do what works, not when they're toddlers, but as they get, especially by the age of 3.5 to 4. They tend to only do what works. They're not stupid like us. We do the same things over and over, expecting different results. I do anyway. And it's just ignorance. But I mean, it's because we get set in our ways. Children aren't like that. If something isn't working, they move on to something else. That's why they're so easy to deal with. I find kids really easy. Okay, how can I go about weaning my 2.5-year-old from breastfeeding? He wants to nurse all night and pitch a fit and wakes up every moment I try to cut him off. Okay. By the way, if you're going to wean now, 2-year-old, oh, 2 years old. Okay. If you're going to wean them, it's got to be pulling off a Band-Aid. You don't feed them at night and then not during the day or during the day. You know, I don't like that process. It sort of takes longer and it's a mixed message. Sometimes you can feed when I decide it's okay, but then other times you can't. So I would say just no more, and you buy them something to replace it with. Buy them those crazy straw cups or something. Remember those? Do they even make those anymore? Trying to clean those things, I chuck them really quickly. Anyway, but get something that's fun for them to drink out of and say, here you go, this is it. They're going to throw stuff right away. They're going to be mad. That's okay. Just stay calm and carry on. And you dress differently so they can't get access to your boobs too. That's what I used to do. And also don't sit down. And at bedtime, you might want to check out my bedtime battles course. Yeah, it'll teach you how to get them in bed and then how to keep them there. But yeah, weaning them off breastfeeding. Everyone wants to avoid the scenes. You can't. That's where the learning takes place. They're gonna if you're doing something they don't like, the transition period when you're doing something, when you're taking charge, you're becoming a leader. They don't like that. They're gonna fight you. Someone wrote. I'm actually going to ask her if I can use that as a testimonial or use it somewhere. God, this person wrote out the most amazing. They shared a video of mine. They just wrote out like a book almost about how they just started applying this stuff, this leadership stuff. And their little child started to get it and commented. She was 3 and she said, I noticed that you don't give me choices anymore. Like she picked up on it, that when mom said something, it's going to happen. She was always giving her choices, right? Like you can do this or that and that. And the little girl learned that she's in charge. She wanted everything to be a choice when she went to bed, if she went to bed, everything. But the mom just wrote, she must be a writer or something. It was really well done. I'm going to figure out a way to share that because she just synopsized it perfectly. But yeah, once you decide something, you have to make it happen. And they'll start to learn. Like a good example of that was my kids. I was the leader, their dad was the pleaser. It's usually the way it is, by the way. But he deferred to me. So whenever they get out of hand, he'd say, do you want me to tell mom? And that's all it took. That's usually the way it is. There only needs to be one leader in the family, okay? So he liked to take them out and spoil them and do stuff with them. They couldn't wait to get home and tattle on him. Guess what daddy let us have? Because I didn't like junk food. So he'd buy them like, I don't know, a donut or something. And they couldn't wait to get home and tattle on him. So it's kind of nice to have that yin and yang. But yeah, they knew that when mom said something, it was going to happen. So they didn't argue with me. They were more likely to argue with dad. So, but you got to go through the battles. If you're afraid of a fit scene or a tantrum, your children are in charge, guaranteed. I welcome it. Welcome a tantrum. I welcome a fit. I welcome a scene. That's my opportunity to exercise my leadership. You're thinking right now, yeah, that's you. That's not me. You can learn this though. That's what the boot camp course is all about, teaching you how to do that. Scotland. Oh, thanks so much. Geez, I just was watching a video earlier, someone talking about the Highlands. And I thought, oh, I should go there one day. That sounds really neat. I've seen lots of stuff on it. But yeah, I should get there. I'm going to start traveling. I'm only 63. I'm just a young lass. Is that Scottish? Lass? Anyway, or is that Irish? That's Scottish. Anyway, but one day, once I sort of settle down and don't work as much as I am now, I'd like to do a lot of traveling. I think I'll just hit the road and not come back for a couple of years. Texas is on my list. Whole bunch of countries. Scotland, Ireland, Wales. I got to get out there. I want to go to Russia too. I want to see Russia. Okay, is it possible to potty train my son at 20 months old, or is that too young? And they're all different. My potty training course, it's actually a party, how to host a party. It's just you and your kid though. I did it with my kids and I trained them. My son was completely trained in one day. No pull-ups, no night diapers, nothing in one day. My daughter was 2 days, but they were both 2.5. But I think I could have trained my daughter a lot younger. Yeah, I think I could have trained, but I just held out because I wanted to make sure I did it in a weekend. I didn't want to drag it out. So the longer you wait, usually it's quicker to train. At 20 months old, that's awfully young, but some kids are trained at that age. So you might want to check out my potty training course. Yeah, it might be for you. I don't know. That's a personal choice. I suggest 2.5. They're all pretty ready at 2.5. Oh, my voice is bugging me today. I've got to learn not to project so much. I used to do a lot of public speaking, and I learned how to. Oh, I know. I was teaching aerobics, and I was projecting because sometimes you'd work a room in a smaller gym that didn't even have microphones. And I remember I learned how to project, and I haven't stopped projecting since. Just I tend to talk too heavy. I don't know. 18-month-old tantrums about everything, wanting snacks all the time. TV. Yeah, it's just a stage. When you get good at ignoring tantrums, a good example I'll tell you was me and my ex-husband. He was the pleaser, I was the leader. And the kids will always start to squirm during diaper changes. But they learned pretty quickly that they were never going to get away with that with mom. So, but they're still going to try it. They're going to try everything. They're toddlers. They're nuts, right? They're just forming. They don't make any sense. They don't have sense yet. I always call them crazy. They just haven't developed sanity yet. But the difference is when I was changing them and they would start to roll and squirm, I would put my elbow across their chest and I'd change them like that. And they barely squirmed at all. Their dad, on the other hand, would say, okay, I'll get you a toy. Okay, do you want to play for 1 minute? Then I'll change. He started negotiating with the toddler on the change table. They were totally in charge and they knew it. And I would just sit back and watch like this. I thought it was fun. But yeah, they will fight you. They will definitely test you because they don't make any sense yet. Okay, I'm going to read out my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. Where is it? I know it off by heart, but I tend to get sidetracked. That's why I look at my list. Okay, these are my top 5 tips for parenting toddlers. Number 1 is child-proof your home so you never have to say no. Number 2 is set up a toy rotation system so they're never bored. I got lots of videos on that. Number 3 is you enter their world to connect with them. You watch how they play and you join in. You don't expect them to go to the nail salon and connect with you there. You enter their world to connect with them. They just start to look at you differently. When you get good at this, they do, because I've worked with tons of toddlers and they just look at you differently when you're entering their world. The other one is very similar. It's how do you discipline a toddler? You enter their world. You discipline in their world. You discipline so they understand it. They're about consistent corrective actions. They are not about words. Toddlers don't want a mini therapy sessions discussing all their big feelings, big emotions, all that, how they're hurting your feelings and all that. That's garbage. I know it's trendy right now, but get rid of it. It's just garbage. That's for you. That's not for your toddler. It means nothing to them. They're about consistent corrective actions because they learn through repetition. They're not listening to you, they're watching you. So that's how you discipline a toddler. Now, the last one is the most important with toddlers. This is number 5, how to parent a toddler. Top 5 tips. Stop trying to figure them out. They're not figure outable. They're brand new, fresh human beings. They're just forming. They might even go like this and smear poop on the wall. They might even smear it on their face. Does that make sense? No. To them, sure. Whatever. They're going to try stuff, okay? Imagine if you're only 2 years old and the first year you were a potato laying on a mattress. They're just forming. 1 marble and some tumbleweed. Cute as a button, but they're all feet, no brains. So don't overthink it. Just relax and say, oh, well, it's just a stage. So, yeah. Interesting. My 7-year-old kicks and fights when getting dressed for school every morning. Okay, check out my boot camp course. That means he doesn't respect you. That's all it says to me. He wouldn't be doing that if he respected you. If you were a leader, he would not do that. No way. No way. So check out my boot camp course. That's in the link above. Or at the least, check out the behavior board. That's completely free. Check that. It's all in the link above. I don't know the age. Your son nagging himself. Is he 2, 12? I don't know the age. Sorry. I need an age. I'm going to skip ahead because I got a whole bunch of questions and it doesn't scroll for me and people come and go. So I don't want to answer questions if people have already gone. Okay, my 15-month-old just started hitting a lot. What do you suggest? I actually have a course on toddlers who hit, etc. I'm almost finished all the videos for that, but the videos will be attached to that soon. But anyway, the course is already there. But anyway, check out the course. It's about consistent corrective actions. Every time they hit, you say no, and then you show them that it's correct. Pardon me, corrective actions. So you take their hand, whatever they just hit with, you hold it, and you push it away, and you say no. And then you just sort of pretend you're just doing whatever. Watch them like a hawk when they go to hit again. You grab them before they hit, and you say no. You got to keep doing that, and then you just wander off. Don't run away, kind of thing. You're just sort of wandering off, doing your own business. They'll eventually learn. Okay. There are 4 things. There are 4 annoying traits that kids are either born to do or they're never going to do them. One is, I never did any of these, neither did my daughter, but my son did one of them. One of them is tantrums. My son had tantrums. One of them is climbing. They're either going to climb or they're not going to be climbers, right? You know those kids who end up climbing the walls, literally in a hallway that can climb a wall? The other one is runners. They'll take off in public and won't even look behind to see where you are. They're often climbers also. They're risk takers. They don't worry about stuff. And the last one is hitting. They're either going to be aggressive or they're not. They're born to do these things. It's nothing you've done or haven't done. It's just something in them. But it's your job to train them out of that stuff or to corral them, okay? How to stop swearing. Ignoring doesn't work. He's 3. You don't ignore swearing. Use the behavior board. It's completely free. Check out the link above and you just put down no bad words. And then there's a consequence for every bad word. Now, if they're saying 50 bad words a day, you say at the end of the day, I'll tell you what, that cleaning a window every time you say a bad word isn't working. So we're going to go straight to the other one. There's always 2 consequences. Check it out. It'll explain it. And then you go right to media blackout or something like that. So you say you've been saying bad words all day. So now we're going to do media blackout for 24 hours. No screens for 24 hours. Are they going to have a fit? Yes, you want that though. You want the fit. You want them to have a fit because all of a sudden they're not in charge anymore. You are. That's a transition. Children do not transition well. They don't like change. So especially when it's not going their own way. So everyone's afraid of the fit scene or a tantrum. Welcome it. Say, woohoo, hallelujah. Here comes change. So yeah. Okay, putting my 2.5-year-old son to bed. He's calm and then he starts screaming. Okay, check out my bedtime battles course. That explains how you manage that, okay? But yeah, he just doesn't want to stay in bed. He wants you in there with him. He wants to be in charge. That's all that's saying. You can train him out of that. Check out the bedtime battles course. It's often a really rough night. So do it on a weekend when you don't have to have any sleep. But it's a whole process. There's 2 parts. How to get them in bed and then how to keep them there. Getting them in bed is easy. Keeping them there is the hard part. Okay, 4-year-old gets, thanks for putting the age, by the way, it makes it easier. 4-year-old gets very physical during play dates and gets in their space. How to correct in the moment. Pick something specifically that's very obvious. You can't just say, don't get in their physical space. It has to be very clearly defined. And you show him. You say, when you're playing with someone, and you imitate what he does, mimic it. Say, when you go like this, we're going to put that on the behavior board. We're going to say, no, I don't know, no being in someone's face. Word it however you want, doesn't matter. Anyway, explain it, but show him what it is. And say, so if you do that, there's going to be a consequence after, maybe during the play date, depending on what it is, or after. But yeah, you have to put that in the behavior board. He's 4, he can understand that. So show him what you mean. Don't just talk about it. They're about actions. They're about visual. They're watching you. They're not listening to you as much. So yeah. And then just have a consequence for it. They'll eventually learn. It's called social skill training, and they'll eventually learn. What happens with stuff like that usually is their peers will teach them. Like some parents have said to me, what do I do? He's always hitting other kids. And I said, wait till he goes to school. He'll be belted one day. So there'll be some other kid who will train him right out of it. I don't like that, but that if parents don't want to take charge, other kids will. So yeah, you'd rather teach them how not to do that. The social skills stuff. Oh, well, I was going to say it's not going to work, but you already realized that. 2.5-year-old screams for no real reason and telling him not to doesn't work. Of course it doesn't work. How is that going to work? Don't get upset. Don't scream. That's not going to do anything. So I don't know. When he's happy, sad all the time, I don't know what you mean by that. Generally, I would ignore that sort of stuff, or I would even go like this maybe and go, ooh, and then just walk away. So there's a clear message that that's not going to get any positive attention at all. So oh, and just walk away. Don't even look at him though. Just, oh, walk away. So it's sort of signaling that it's a scream. So, but when you walk away, don't look angry. Don't look at them. That's the hard part. A lot of parents trip up with this. They go, oh, that's loud. I'm going to walk away now. But I would just go like this. If he's looking at me and he just screams out, I would just go, and then walk away. Very calmly, very quietly, just walk away. They will eventually connect the dots, but it's going to get worse before it's going to get better. Most things get worse before they get better because they're going to challenge you. They're going to say, I remember the old you, 5 minutes ago. I remember the old you that was 5 minutes ago. I want that one back because I want to be in charge again. The funny thing is, children don't really want to be in charge, but they'll still fight for that leadership role. It's funny because they don't really want it. It's like they're almost challenging you. How to deal with running. Yeah. Use restraint. So runners, I already said that there's 4 annoying traits that kids are born to do or they're not going to do. One of them is running. So what I would do is put a harness on them before you go out in public, and then as soon as you say, no, you don't run, as soon as they start to run, clip, and you keep them clipped in for the rest of that outing. It's going to be ugly. So do some practice runs. Go to the park or somewhere where you can practice, where you don't have to be. So don't do it like we're at an airport when you have to go somewhere. You know what I mean? Like practice before you go somewhere that really matters. But yeah, clip them in, keep them clipped in the whole rest of that outing. So they'll eventually learn. It's not going to happen overnight, though. Parents all want the quick fix. There is no quick fix with this stuff. They're learning. It's going to take them time. They don't learn something overnight. As they get older, they do. Doesn't mean they're going to do it, but they can learn quicker. But when they're little, they learn through repetition. They don't learn the first time. Rarely do they learn the first time. Oops, I'm just going to scroll ahead here because people come and go, so I don't want to. Okay, someone asked me this, and I'm just going to read it because it's on YouTube. Toddler having trouble with constipation due to not eating regular foods. I'm not a nutritionist or a doctor, so I can't really comment on stuff like that. You know, I would always seek professional advice for something like that, but lots of little ones do get that. And I know a lot of it could potentially, I think some doctors will even say this, that they need more liquids. But I would look up just some natural stuff, like what foods would help them. Some children only like cheese. Well, if all they're doing is eating cheese and drinking milk, then they might get bunged up. I don't know, but I'm not a doctor, so you have to check with a doctor. Okay, my 9-year-old keeps peeing himself, especially when he's having fun or distracted. I don't know what to do. I did that a lot after I had my kids. I'm a real laugher and I get giggling, and yeah, I often wet myself. So I understand. Anyway, pees himself, especially when he's having, okay. I know what I want to tell you, but in coaching I talk about this, but just because I'm not a doctor, you know, I would go to seek a professional first, make sure that he's physically okay. But oftentimes they just have, I guess what you could call a weaker bladder. They just don't have the same bladder control as other kids, and they will grow into that. So those are bedwetters often are like that. They just don't have a fully developed control over their bladder yet. So it could just be that. But then if he's going to go out somewhere, always make sure, just cue him to go to the bathroom a lot. So say, hey, we're heading out as soon as you go to the bathroom. As soon as you go to the bathroom, we can do this. As soon as you go to the bathroom, we'll do that. And when he's peeing, and I'm not a doctor, so I'm just as a mom, when he's peeing, have him stop and start. It strengthens the muscle, evidently. Doctors have told me that. But I'm not a doctor. I don't know. I'm very careful with that stuff. As part of a tantrum, 18-month-old comes to run, mom's legs has to be carried. Yeah, they'll do that. Yeah, I wouldn't pick them up. I might just sort of pat them on the back for a second, like I don't even know they're there, like, yeah, and then I'm doing whatever I'm doing. I wouldn't get rid of them. If they start biting or whatever, I'd peel them off my leg and then I'd wander off, just to put some distance between us. But yeah, they're going to do that. I wouldn't pick them up though. No way. You know what they're doing? You know what you're teaching them? Tantrums work. That if I have a tantrum, I will get picked up. So yeah, you're rewarding the tantrum. If you do anything, any attention is reward. So during a tantrum, afterwards you can pick them up, but don't go overboard with consoling. Oh, I know you're upset. Don't go overboard. Say, you'll be okay. You're fine. Let's go read a book. Yeah. So any attention is tantrum food. You're fertilizing it. Oops, I got to go over to TikTok now. If you want to join me over there, you're welcome to. Check out the link above for my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, my big boot camp course, 3 to 12 years old. It's all about you and your leadership. Or you can hire me for coaching. I've changed that due to my availability now. So you have to email me first to see if we're a good fit. So before we move forward with coaching, because you can't do it automatically on my website anymore. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. And I'm going over to TikTok now. Happy parenting. Oops. Okay, all done. If toddler just this is in YouTube. If toddler just wants to snack and not eat regular food, should we just give them chips, etc.? Well, is that a legitimate question? I'm not going to answer that. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. How do I address my 2.5-year-old screaming in the car for attention and I'm not able to pull over? That says to me that that would have worked in the past. If they're screaming, I wouldn't talk to them. There's no way. And also, are they used to getting like food and that in the car and they're just not getting all that reward? Like when we went in the car, that was boredom time. Like you just sit there and we'll talk and that, but I wasn't feeding them, giving them tons of toys. They just learned that was just, we'd just sit and we'd talk, or they could look out the window. They might have a toy, but I wasn't constantly entertaining them in the car. So I'm wondering if they just aren't getting all that entertainment that they're used to getting, potentially. Does that make any sense to you? That's on YouTube, by the way. Okay, so let's get going on TikTok now. So welcome to my live on TikTok. What was I going to say? I forget. Anyway, sorry. Hello. Sorry, I'm just zoned out. I've been on here for an hour now. By the time you get me, I've already done an hour. So my voice is starting to crack. I do TikTok last in my rotation of lives because I do it in alphabetical order. Otherwise, I'm too stupid. I forget where I am. So I used to go TikTok, Facebook, and then I go back to TikTok and forget Instagram. So now I just do it in alphabetical order. Okay, so parenting questions. I'm a parenting coach. I'm just here to answer your questions. I'll do the best I can. Please include the age in your questions. And yeah, okay. Kids 2 to 7 years play rough when mom is around, but are well behaved when dad is around because he spanks them. Yeah, so he's the old-fashioned authority, the dictator-style parenting. He only spanks because he doesn't know what else to do. No one really wants to yell at or spank their kids. So yeah, check out 2 to 7-year-old. Check out my boot camp course. That might be for you. It teaches you what else to do instead of yelling or spanking. Teaches you what else to do. So that's fear-based parenting, and that backfires down the road like you wouldn't believe. So yeah, you don't want to keep, and that's one of the, yelling and spanking works really well in the moment in that it stops the behavior usually, but it backfires because you're building resentment. And yeah. So yeah, check out the boot camp course. It's in the link above. Teaches you how to give respect to get it. It's all about you and your leadership. And it teaches you what else to do instead of spanking. I don't quite know what you mean by this. A 2-year-old who's terrible with silverware. Any tips? So they're bad with spoons and forks? I don't know what you mean by that. And they're 2 years old. So they don't use it. They just want to use their hands. I would just fuss every time they do use. Do you have another kid that's older maybe? And fuss over them when they use it? Oh, look at me. Oh, this is fun. Get them some colored spoons or something fun. Some fun tool to work with. Probably not chopsticks, but you get the idea. Get them something fun to work with, something new that's just theirs. But don't worry, don't sweat the small stuff. They're just 2. So what if they just use their hands for spaghetti? I mean, they'll learn eventually. 13-month-old to stop hitting and biting. Is it simple as saying no and putting them down? The word no is just the start of the action for me. They don't listen to you. It's all about actions. So, and if they're only 13 months old, so if they're biting you, I would just say no, and I would sort of hold them away from me, and then I'd put them down and just calmly walk away. They'll eventually connect it. Not right away. They're babies, not right away. Or you might go sit and read one of their books and they can come and join you. But if they bite again, say no, put them down. You have to follow it up with actions. Toddlers under the age of 3 are about consistent corrective actions. That's still sort of a baby. So, but you still have to do it, but you never want to correct a baby to make them cry. Like, go no, and you push them away and make them cry. You got to be really careful with that. So you're sending the message. You want them to look at you like this. You don't want them to scream and cry. You want them to, like, what? Like, they're trying to put it together. Like, why did I just get put down? They might cry because they've been put down, but you don't want them to cry because you've scared them, because they're just babies. I really play to babies. Like, what I mean by that is, I always say, with children, you meet their needs and manage their wants. With babies, I meet their needs and I meet their wants. But if they're biting or something, you want to train them out of that. But a baby to me is up to about 15 months. This is sort of a baby. Some people are surprised at that because they think I'm tough. I rarely discipline kids. I'm all about bonding with them. When you're a really good leader and you're connected with kids and you're bonded with them, they don't tend to disrespect you. They tend to respect you and treat you really well. So that's my strength, is the connection I build with children is my strength. That's my leadership. That's the way I view it. Discipline is a very tiny part of all this. I'm about connecting in their world. Need help? Well, that's what I'm here for. If you're really struggling and you want to work with me, send me an email. Coaching is all done. You have to email me first now. I used to be able to sign up right on my website, but I'm not as available as I was, so I'm just getting busier. So send me an email and we'll see if we're a good fit. My 3-year-olds become very violent during a tantrum lasting half an hour to 45 minutes. Okay, so it's getting worse. This is what happens at 3. They go one way or they go the other. If they've been in charge and you're the pleaser style parent, trying to please them, giving them choices for everything, discussing all their big feelings, that's when they find their power, and they often get really difficult. Otherwise, if you're a leader and you've already sort of shown that you're the leader and you give respect to get it, but you actually discipline them with consistent corrective actions, then they get easier. So at 3, they find their power. They either get easier or they get more difficult. So yeah, work on your leadership skills. That's what's going on. It's your leadership skills. Their behavior between the ages of 3 to 12 is a direct result of your parenting. And not teenagers, not toddlers. 3 to 12, you're at the height of your leadership skills. That's when your leadership power. That's when that's why my course, the boot camp course, is 3 to 12. Very different ages, but you're at the height of leadership. They want to please you because they look up to you. You're like a mentor. They like you. You're fun. You don't take any crap either. They respect you because of it. Someone said to me recently, they said, well, what about when your kids gave you any lip? And I said, no, they really didn't. Why would they? I was a leader. They don't give lip to a leader. But if they did, like if they were young and they'd given me any lip or did something I didn't like, I'd just go, are you kidding me with this? Like, I'm a leader. Why would you, like I wouldn't even know what to do because like I would be shocked. They don't talk like that to a leader. They just, because they look up to you. They want to please you. You make them feel good about themselves. It's about making them feel good about themselves, not you. That happens organically, but they feel good about themselves when they're with you because you bring out the best in them. You make them proud of themselves. Bad behavior just decreases self-esteem. It's in the toilet. Good behavior increases self-esteem. They respect themselves and others. That's high self-esteem. They're proud of themselves. Love your kids enough to discipline them because there's no pride or self-esteem without respect. The leadership is all about love and connecting. It's not about being mean. It's the opposite. I think it's meaner to allow your kids to be naughty because I feel sorry for kids who go to school and the teacher sees them coming and rolls her eyes. Like, oh, here they come. Like, wouldn't that be awful to see that if you're a parent knowing that the school is just dreading your kids turning up? Yeah, it's a horrible feeling. I work with parents like this. I say, well, let's fix that. Every year with both my kids, I got handwritten notes from the principal, pretty much the same right through high school. If all the kids were as nice as yours, school would be a pleasure. So thanks. And they identified that I put in the work. They knew that. I put in the work. I earned that. I earned those notes every year. I agree. I have that. Yeah, but anyone can get it too. Like, it's not like I was, gifted with this. Actually, I kind of was easy for me. But I was volunteering in daycare centers when I was 11. If you did that, you'd be here too. Like, I was always trying to figure kids out. I found them fascinating, and I love mothering kids. So I was like a little mother. I love mothering kids. So imagine that. What 11-year-old volunteers in daycare centers? Like, that was, when I look back, I thought it was normal. No one else I knew did it. But yeah, I did that for years. Then I started volunteering in hospitals, facilities with severely disabled children, narcotic NAS babies, narcotic addiction syndrome in hospitals, holding newborn or preemies. I did all that stuff when I was young. I mean, I was doing all that stuff. So yeah, I was always trying to figure kids out. Anyone can learn this. Just take advantage of all my decades of, like, I've been doing this for 52 years. Take advantage of all my decades of experience, and think maybe I actually have some advice here. Maybe you can learn this too. Anyone can learn this. It's just a skill you can learn, like most things. 17-month-old constantly bangs toys and objects in our window. Can't get him to stop. Take them all away. Say no, and then put that toy away. As soon as he does it again, no, put that toy away. No, put that toy away. And then you can try and play other games with him with no toys, like nothing to bang. Get a stuffed toy and you can play, here they're going to go for a walk or whatever. But yeah, I just keep taking him away. He'll eventually learn. Then hand them all back to him maybe an hour later, but only have, like, I did toy rotation system. So my kids only had a few toys out at any given time. So it wouldn't take very long for all the toys to be gone. So yeah, they'll eventually learn. But they learn through consistent corrective actions at that age, not words. Well, everyone wants, when will this work? I don't know. Every kid's different. Every parent's different. I don't know. Some kids learn very quickly. It's not so much that they don't know what they should be doing. They'll know right from wrong. They know when they're doing something they shouldn't be doing, but it's when do they give in and just stop doing it? How much does your disapproval matter to them? They're all different. So I can't answer when it's going to happen. It's different with everybody. But what I do know is, when you're a really strong, calm leader and you know how to have fun with kids in their world, they're very quick to respect you. So it doesn't take any time at all. I've worked with hundreds of kids, and I can very quickly get respect because I've been doing it for so long. So it's never the kid, it's you. So think about it that way. You have so much more power than you realize you do, which is good news. Parents tend to relinquish their power and blame their kids. But if you just take responsibility for their actions, I mean, they're toddlers, they're just nuts anyway. They'll eventually stop doing things that, they'll eventually learn. But yeah, a lot of parents just give their power away. Oh, well, he's got ODD. That was invented to make moms feel better about themselves, by the way. That's what many doctors have told me that. It's not a real thing. It's not a medical diagnosis. That's oppositional defiant disorder. It was just invented to make moms feel better. So then what they do is they say, well, I can't help it if he's got ODD. So they don't have to do anything. It's the kid's fault. Yeah, parents nowadays tend to relinquish their power. I remember when my kids both started grade 1, I said to their teacher, if my kids ever step a toe out of line, I knew they wouldn't, but I said, if they ever step a toe out of line, don't ever discipline them. That's my job. Call me and I'll do it. And I never got a call. So the teachers love me. So yeah. Don't relinquish your power. They want you to be a leader. They need a leader. They desperately need, crave, and want a leader. If you're not that, if you're not a leader at home for your child, you're going to send them out in the world very, very vulnerable. They're going to be vulnerable to peer pressure, bullying, the drug dealer on the corner, the internet, the Kardashians. They're going to be very vulnerable because they don't have a leader. Children without a leader are just their followers. They're very impressed by other people. You want them to be impressed by you. You want them to come and tell you everything. You want to be a safe place to land. So right through the teen years, they'll tell you everything. Just like I told my mom, just like my kids told me. Yeah, don't relinquish your power. You got so much more power than you think you do. Even with teenagers, it's not about telling them what to do. It's about getting respect and building that relationship with your children. That's your power, is connecting with them. And be a really good listener, so they'll tell you everything. Kids who tell their parents everything rarely get in trouble. My son, he was a teenager, and he says, I could never get in trouble because you were always sitting right here. And I said, sweetie, that wasn't me. That was your conscience. But it was kind of me too. But yeah, he would never want to face me. One of his friends said, not friends, it was a classmate. He was about 16. And he says, hey, would you ever break the law? He said to my son. My son said, are you kidding me? I'd be terrified my mom would get to me before the police could. He just would be too humiliated to face me. Yeah. So yeah, you have a lot of power. You know, you got to work on your relationship with your kids. It starts when they're toddlers, but it's a slow burn when they're little because they're just nuts when they're toddlers. How do we get our preschoolers to talk about their day? Oh, I get asked this quite often. You don't. It'll just come out eventually. It's like this. You know how it's kind of seems like it's not, but it is. You know how when you see someone all the time, you've got a million things to talk about. When you don't see someone for a whole year, you can't think of anything to say. Like you got to get the motor running, right? So yeah, once they start talking, then, you know, it gets easier. But yeah, you can't pull it out of them. It'll come out eventually. I used to say to my kids, what'd you do today? And what happened in school? Nothing. And then, of course, by dinner, they were telling me everything that happened. But it just comes out eventually. How would you discipline your teenager? I don't really talk like that about disciplining teenagers. You've got to build the respect, the mutual respect with teenagers. Build your relationship with your teenager. I don't have any courses on that. That would have to be coaching. You can check out the link above if you're interested in working with me. But teenagers, it's all about building your bond with them. And I'm going to read my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. They're my favorite age, by the way. I started my business working with teen crisis work and abused children. It was mostly crisis that I started my business with. And I love teenagers. Everyone was so surprised at that. But other people who work with teenagers, they say, yeah, they're just the best. When you know how to get respect for the teenager, they're the best. Okay, these are my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. Number 1 is you listen to understand and show empathy. You don't listen to gather information to lecture with, or they will shut you out. If they want your advice, they'll ask for it. And by the way, they already know it. Number 2, negotiate pretty much everything. Hey, I want your dirty clothes in the hamper from now on. What do you want from me? It's not a blanket statement, but you get the idea. Negotiate stuff, give and take. Number 3 is don't sweat the small stuff. Allow them to make mistakes just like you did. If my kids had done something stupid and it wasn't a big deal, I would have said, well, that was stupid. You want to hear what I did when I was your age? And then laugh it off. It's okay to make mistakes. Yeah, save your energy for the big stuff if you even need it. Okay, those are my top 3 tips for parenting teenagers. Whenever people hire me and they've got teenagers they want to bond with or they want to discipline, we work on bonding right away. Right away. You got to work on the relationship. They're not going to listen to you until they start to respect you. It doesn't make any sense at all. Doesn't make any sense at all to me. You got to improve your relationship before you can even think about dealing with stuff that you want to correct. So, does that make sense? They don't listen to someone they don't respect. I guess I was referring to your son in your story about he didn't want you to know if he'd done. Was that, I don't know what you wrote. Was that when he cut his uniform? Was that one? God, that was a funny story. I don't know what you mean. That uniform one is one of my parenting fails. I made a complete fool out of myself. He was in grade 1. But anyway, how I connected with my son when he was 15. Is that the story? Okay. I'm going to tell it anyway. You've got a teenager. My son was 14. We were best friends. We were like girlfriends, talked about everything. Oh, that was great. I loved it. Then he woke up every morning. I'd wake up and I'd go downstairs and he'd be in the kitchen and I'd say, morning, sweetie. And he'd go, morning, mom. You know, his voice going up and down. We were like laughing, giggling all the time. And I'm not kidding you. He turned 15. It was like overnight. I went downstairs and I said, morning, sweetie. And he turned around. He looked different. He was like 6 feet tall and he went, morning, mom. He turned into a man like overnight. He wasn't my girlfriend anymore. Testosterone hormones took over. He didn't giggle as much or talk, he just turned into a guy. And I thought, oh, great, here we go. So anyway, I thought, how am I going to bond with this kid? Because we just didn't have the same kind of buddy-buddy relationship anymore. So how am I going to bond with him? Because he loved heavy metal music, which I hated, and gaming. And he's 34. He still loves gaming. And anyway, so I thought, how am I going to bond with this kid? So because I missed it. I wanted to, have fun with him again. So you know what I did? I was furniture. What I did was I just went downstairs in the rec room where he had all his gaming stuff down. And I sat with a magazine beside him on the couch, never said a word. I just sat there and leafed through a magazine like this. And I'd look up every so often. Next thing you know, he's talking about the game. Next thing you know, he's handing me a controller. Next thing you know, we're playing together, we're laughing, and then he's starting to make playlists for me with heavy metal music that he thinks I might like. I got addicted to NWA's Greatest Hits. Look it up. I had to put all the windows up in my minivan before I could even play it. Anyway, but yeah, that's how we connected. You always connect in their world, never in yours. So, but you wait till you get invited. So you connect in their world, but don't sit down. Can I play? You just wait till, make it obvious that you're available. That's what I did. So that's how we bonded. I love this, but my 17-year-old games in his room. I never allowed that. I didn't allow that. The gaming had to be out in the family. We had a rec room and a family room and a living room, and it had to be in the rec room. Had to be in a main area. Yeah, you kind of have to negotiate that one. Yeah, there's ways around that. If you want to work with me, you can hire me, and we can figure out how to work around that. But yeah. Yeah, I got that one before it happened because I knew if I allowed stuff like that in his room, I'd never see him. So yeah, but there's ways around that. How to teach a 21-month-old restaurant manners during breakfast. Restaurant manners? Well, they're only little. Yeah, you don't teach a 21-month-old restaurant manners. You can teach them mealtime manners, like how to sit and eat, and you don't get up and you don't wander around with food. If you allow your 21-month-old to eat food around your house and then expect them to be different in a restaurant, that's ridiculous. You have to be consistent. So like my kids never got any food unless they were sitting at the kitchen table. That just didn't happen at all, ever, not once. So, or drinks or anything. They had to sit at the kitchen table, or they could have sippy cups of water around the house. But yeah, so just teach them what happens at home. They tend to do out in a restaurant. But if you're going to a restaurant with a fussy toddler, I used to feed my toddlers first, and I also took them to the park on the way to a restaurant. So I'd run off some steam, and they were all full. So by the time we got there, I'd pull out the coloring book or whatever it was, and then I'd give them activities to do. They might eat something in the restaurant. They might not. That's the problem. They might not like what's there. Yeah. But don't expect them to be different outside of home than they are. And you shouldn't be different either. And like I was 100% consistent. I was the exact same mother everywhere. And the kids knew it. I didn't always discipline when we were out. I might have said, I didn't like that. We'll discuss it when we get home. My kids would have been sweating. So they didn't cause me any trouble. But you know what I mean? Like I was the exact same mother everywhere we went. When we used to take our kids out to really fancy restaurants, everyone would see us coming and go, oh no, tiny kids in a restaurant. But I was prepared. And at waiters, everyone would come up to us later on and say, oh, your kids are so well behaved. But I worked it. I knew how to work it. I knew how to burn off steam before we went, feed them before we went out, and bring them activities when we were there. And yeah, and they knew to sit at a table when there was food. They knew that during meals you sit at the table because they knew that at home. So 12-year-old says no to everything, like to go to anything, skating, swimming, etc. Well, I don't quite know. Says no to everything, skating, swimming, etc. I don't know what you mean by that. You want them to go skating and swimming, and they don't want to go? Have you asked them if they want to do something else? Or like my daughter was a joiner, my son wasn't. And when he was a teenager, I allowed him to make his own decisions. But before then, he had to join something. But he could pick what it was. He had to try everything, but then he had to join something every year. But yeah, I'm wondering if you're expecting too much, or I don't know quite the context around that, so I can't really answer that. Got to give them a say. How to better connect with a 2-year-old so they listen. You play with them in their world. Watch how they play and join in. They look at you differently. They just do. I've worked with tons of toddlers, and I know how to connect. Watch how they play and join in. And sit down on the floor, lay down on the floor if they're laying down the floor, lay down on the floor. Mimic them. Enter their world. They'll look at you differently. Is there any inner work that one can do to be a good leader, parent? Gee, that's a very good question. So work on yourself before you're a parent. Um, you know what? You know what teenagers taught me? That I used to work with troubled teenagers. You know what they taught me was it doesn't seem relevant, but it kind of is that I have a certain value system. I was raised in a loving home with good values. If you're raised in an abusive home, your value system is very different. And I was very judgmental. I thought, why would, and some of them were pretty awful, some of these teenagers, they do awful things. And I was judgmental. I thought, why would you do that? And then I realized, why wouldn't they? That was done to them growing up. So what it did, now just listen to me here, is it opened my mind. I thought, you know what? My way's not the only way. I'm not talking about the value system so much, but your kids might teach you stuff. Be very open-minded. My kids, if you're not learning from your children and look at how they view the world, they're going to see things objectively. You're going to see things through your own experience, your own baggage, your own life. They don't. They're brand new, fresh human beings. So watch them and learn. Yeah, I learned a lot. With those teenagers especially, I learned, hey, don't judge. If they've been raised like that, how would they know any different? Even though they know different, it's inbred in them that, you know, when they grow up being beaten or whatever, chances are they might beat on someone else. So yeah, that was a challenge for me. And I learned that pretty early on. I thought, oh, wait a minute. How can I bond with them if I'm going to judge them? So, but yeah, learn from children, open your mind, watch them. Yeah. When I was about 20, and I used to volunteer at this care center for severely disabled children. And anyway, I won't go into it, but it was heavy duty. And whenever they'd get a new volunteer, they never talked to the volunteers hardly at all. Do you know why? Because they knew they'd probably never see them again. It was pretty difficult. And so I was there for 2 years. I went twice a week for 2 years. I was about 20, 22 or something. And I did that for a couple of years, and I got really bonded with these kids. But I said, and then the nurses and that started talking to me because they realized I actually came back. I don't blame people for not coming back. Anyway, it's pretty heavy. But I always was determined to figure kids out no matter what. And now these children were heavily medicated to avoid seizures, and they had all sorts of shunts, and you know they were really physically, you know, as bad as it gets, basically. And I thought, how do I bond with these kids? Like, how do I know if they know me? And they said, you know how you. So I was always obsessed with trying to bond with kids and try to connect with them. So that, well, they don't see, they don't talk, they don't play, they just lay there, right? So and they said, you know how you'll know when they know you is when you pick them up, they go limp. Because when a stranger picks them up or someone that they don't feel comfortable with, they stiffen because of the shunts. It's uncomfortable. If you don't know how to pick them up properly, it can hurt, right? And I remember the first time I picked up after a couple of weeks of being there, just volunteering, and I picked up one of these kids and they went completely limp, and I just started sobbing. I just lost it. I thought, oh, they feel comfortable with me. So it's about always be willing to learn from children and connecting with them in their world. And I know that's an extreme example, but I was connecting with them in their world. It was a matter, I picked them up a lot because that was how they, you know, that was how we bonded. They loved being picked up by someone who knew how to pick them up. But anyway, seems a little bit off, but it's not. It's the same thing. You're always connecting their world. So, geez, I love that. It was frustrating for me too when I was volunteering there for a couple of years. I was very young when I was doing it, and no one wanted to hear about it. It made everyone uncomfortable, and it was very frustrating for me because I wanted to talk about it, and you know, because it was a really enriching thing. I loved it. Oh, this is cute. I'm 53 years of age, and I don't need an old pensioner telling me about life. Oh, that's great. I get some very angry, miserable people in here, and that's fine. You can vent all you want. Okay. Okay. 16-month-old throws tantrums when he can't touch stove or get anything he wants. Any advice? Check out my tantrum busting course. It'll teach you how to deal with that. Tantrums are not bad behavior. You never punish a tantrum. Tantrums are an emotional loss of control over not getting what they want, when they want, and how they want it. They're going to go through them. They're not going to stop today or tomorrow. They might stop in a couple of years, but you can diminish their frequency, intensity, and duration by learning how to effectively ignore a tantrum. Don't ever stop doing what you need to do to take them away from the stove. Don't ever avoid a tantrum either, because if you're afraid of their tantrums, they pick up on that energy and they're just going to get worse and worse and worse. You don't look at them or talk to them while they're having a tantrum. As soon as they're done, okay, do you want to go draw? Do you want to go? You give them attention as soon as they've stopped. Attention is tantrum food. You don't look at them or talk to them. That's attention. You're fertilizing the tantrum. You're making it grow. Oops, what time's, I got to get going. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me. If you want to check out the link above, you can see my free behavior board, my mini toddler courses, or my big boot camp course, or you can hire me for coaching. You can't hire me for coaching automatically anymore on my website due to my availability. And you have to send me an email. We'll see if we're a good fit and if I've got time and all that. So anyway, thanks so much for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow sometime. I don't know what time. So happy parenting. Bye now.